Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Medina City Schools Board of Education meeting for November 18th, 2019. Thank everyone for coming, and if everyone would stand and join with me in the reciting of our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation, under Thank you. Mr. Chambers, call roll.
Mr. Eastwood. Here. Ms. Parkhurst.
Here.
Mr. Skidmore.
Here.
Ms. Pavlik.
Here.
Mr. Ross.
Here.
Thank you.
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from our regular meeting on October 21st, 2019, and our work session November 4th, 2019.
I would second that motion.
Any board discussion on our minutes for either meeting? Hearing none. Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Thank you.
Are there any additions, removals, or modifications this evening to our agenda?
My only question would be, would we want to maybe move the public comment? It appears like there's a lot of people here. That up from item I and insert that after E and before F in the agenda. Otherwise, I'm okay with the agenda as presented. Thank you.
So right after the board communications? You're
Yes,
saying?
Mr. Ross.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda with that change.
I'll second.
Mr. Chambers?
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sable?
Good evening. Nice to see an unusually large crowd here tonight. We would make you all stay throughout the meeting because we're not used to having so many people, but Mr. Ross already told me that he's going to pause after our presentations to give all our parents and students an opportunity to leave. But I do want to thank so many of our family members for coming today, as well as so many of our students. We have a lot to celebrate in terms of what's been going on in the district. And we've got two presentations that I'm going to introduce. And the first is our American Legion Essay Contest winners. We're very fortunate to have a large amount of support from our American Legions. I know in my 3+ years in the district, I've really had an opportunity to get to know some of these gentlemen, whether it's been on the sidelines at our football games or whether it's been working on initiatives and making sure we have flags in all of our classrooms. And here they are again, working with our students and recognizing them through this Veterans Day essay contest. And I'd like to start off by inviting Dave Taylor up to say a few words on behalf of the American Legion, and then I'll introduce the students and they'll present their speeches.
I'll be quick. I don't know how many of you have eaten dinner yet. On behalf of American Legion Post 202 in Medina, I want to thank Ron Ross, the school board, for this excellent program, essay contest. What does Veterans Day mean to me? As Aaron said, we worked with the school board and the school administration on other things back in the spring of 2018. We provided 320 American flags so that every classroom of every school in Medina has an American flag. And now we're back again to work with you on this excellent essay program. Those things, the flags, the essay program, are what I call heart and soul initiatives. And while the school administration works diligently on things like budgets and matching up enrollment with schools and those kinds of things, these heart and soul initiatives will have lasting impact, and so we have to keep them going. And I think they're going to have a big impact in many years down the road. So I hope you will continue with that essay contest. And rest assured, anything we could do, American Legion Post 202, we're here to help you. God bless.
And our first student to present tonight, we're going to start with our sixth graders, Gabriella Miller, who won first place at Claggett.
Veterans Day is a day we appreciate those who served our country. This day takes place on November 11th. Some people forget about Veterans Day and don't give enough appreciation to our veterans, which is wrong because some have fought and died or fought and got injured. Everybody should honor those who served because it can make them feel like they actually fought for a purpose and helped people. Veterans Day is important to me because I may not have a veteran or someone who's serving that I know of in my family, but I still like to learn about and appreciate what they had to go through while in the Army. I also like to appreciate how hard it must have been being so far away from friends and family. Some members of the military aren't even able to be there for their children's birth. One more reason appreciating Veterans Day is important to me is because if we didn't have those men and women that are brave enough to go into the military, our country and our people would be in serious danger or taken over by another country. I know that I could never be brave enough to be that far away from my family and be brave enough to go out and fight where I could get killed or seriously injured. All in all, it's really important to me that we say a big thank you to our veterans. In conclusion, Veterans Day is a really important day that we remember, honor, and appreciate the ones who fought and are fighting for what's right for our country. If we don't appreciate them, it can make them feel upset that they're doing this for people who don't care. Thank you.
And our second place winner, also a Claggett student, sixth grader, Andrew Zeisel. Did I get that last name right, Andrew?
Yeah.
All right.
What Veterans Day means to me. Veterans Day is a day where we celebrate all the men and women who risked everything to protect our country and our freedoms. Veterans Day is especially important to me as my father and grandfather both served our country. My father is a United States Marine. My grandfather served in the United States Navy. My grandfather served during the Cuban blockade. This was a 13-day confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union, which was due to the Soviet Union's missile deployment in Cuba. My father's war was due to Iraq. My father served in the Persian Gulf War. This was led by the United States against Iraq. This war was due to Iraq invading Kuwait. My father and grandfather fought to protect people they never knew or would ever know. They did this defending strangers' freedoms and protecting our freedoms at home. While they were in foreign lands, Americans were watching anxiously at home. Both my father and grandfather tell stories about the experiences of fighting and defending helpless citizens. Their stories are very interesting and make me proud to be their son and grandson. I am certain almost every student has a hero somewhere in their family, someone that puts another person's safety first. I'm lucky enough to have two. Our veterans should be celebrated every day, not just on Veterans Day. That is why I thank them every chance I can. I want to be sure they know how thankful I am to them, too, for the sacrifices they have given for not just me, my freedoms, but all the citizens of the United States of America.
And our third place winner, also from Claggett for sixth grade, is Gavin Janik.
I'd like to dedicate this award to my great-great-uncle Eddie, who has served in the Marines and just celebrated his 100th birthday last month, and my Uncle Mark, who has served in the Army. What does Veterans Day mean to me? Veterans Day is on November 11th every year. It's a day to honor all military heroes and our U.S. servicemen and women. My Uncle Mark was in the Army, and I'm proud of his service he gave to our country. He does not currently live close by, but when he did live in Medina, he came to my elementary school's Veterans Day assembly, and I was so proud to have him there. Veterans Day continues to be important to me because it's a day to honor all heroic people who make us feel secure and safe. Every day in the United States, without our military personnel, we would not be safe from invasion from other countries. Servicemen and women are brave, kind, and caring people. These people make sacrifices and sometimes leaving families to go places around the world to keep peace for others. And as well in the USA, many soldiers have risked their lives or lost their lives to protect our freedoms. These include our freedoms to vote, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and freedom to have varieties of beliefs and customs. Veterans show how strong our country is. They bring together communities to form an united bond with all Americans who are proud of the work they do. The sacrifices veterans provide safety for our country so that we can rest easy. I'm thankful for every serviceman and women, and I'm proud of the country that has decided to have a day to honor all military personnel.
And our 6th grade honorable mention from AI Root is Cooper Nunn.
What Veterans Day means to me. Veterans Day is a day where we honor veterans to show respect and appreciation to them for protecting us. Veterans risk their lives to keep others safe. Veterans Day is the day we give back and show them that they deserve to be recognized for all they have done for our country. I have several family members who are veterans. 2 of my great-grandfathers fought in Korea and 1 fought in World War II. One of my grandfathers was in the Navy and the other fought in the Army in Vietnam. However, the veteran I want to talk about is my great-great-uncle Paul. My Uncle Paul was a World War II Army veteran. He served in the 1st Cavalry in the Philippines and Japan. I enjoy talking to my Uncle Paul because he is kind and intelligent. I do not get to visit him often because he lives in Tennessee, but he is one of the greatest men I have ever met. I wish that I could have known him longer because he has experienced different things and is interesting to learn about. I wish that others could get to know him because he is an outstanding person. I think that everyone should meet a veteran and talk to them. They are all incredible. In conclusion, I think that Veterans Day is a day to honor veterans for defending America, and Veterans Day should not be the only day we show respect for what they have done to protect America.
And our first place 7th grade student from AI Root is Morgan Derringer.
To me, Veterans Day is very special because it lets me remember those who risked their lives so we could be safe in the United States. I have had grandparents that served in Vietnam when they were younger. I also have distant family members that are serving who move ever so often, so I'm very grateful for them. Veterans Day is not just a day to celebrate those who lived, but also those who are now deceased. It gives me an opportunity to be grateful and feel the losses of those who have someone who has served, but is no longer with us. We should all be grateful for those who have helped the United States be a better place, because without them, the place we live now would not be the same. For example, we would be in distant war with nothing to protect us if it weren't for our veterans. It is something to think about and just recognize what they did for us. Some of those who have served for us may not be the same person that they were, just so they could keep us safe. I always try to remember that it was a choice they made because they were very loyal to the United States and who they are. So thanks to those who are serving, and thanks to those who are still serving.
I like your red, white, and blue, Morgan. And our 8th grade winners, first place from Claggett, Jeff Robinson.
Veterans Day can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. To some, it may represent a day to be proud of a family member or spouse for having served their country. To others, it's a day to remember someone lost while doing so. To me, Veterans Day means sacrifice, freedom, and celebration. It means a day to honor or give thanks to the committed soldiers who dedicated part of their lives to protect millions of ours. It means honoring all who served. As thanks, we dedicate November 11th of every year to remember their sacrifices, and more importantly, to thank them. They lived a life of sacrifice so we can live a life of freedom. They lived a life of discipline so we could have civil rights. Veterans fought so we could have peace, again and again sacrificing their dreams and even their lives for our freedom. Without Veterans Day, many Americans may not realize how much they've done for us, specifically how much they've sacrificed and how much we owe them for our freedom. Veterans Day is the day that we celebrate this. How exactly do we do that? Through big events such as various wreath-laying ceremonies in Washington, D.C., but also through the simpler gesture of having our country's flag outside our homes, flying high. While very different, both exist to honor all who served. Their sacrifice keeps our freedom safe, and on this November 11th and the many in the future, that is what we will celebrate. Thank you.
And our 2nd place winner from Claggett, Morgan Heaton.
Veterans Day is a big deal to me. Every Veterans Day I think about all the people who have risked and even lost their lives serving for our country. I am very grateful for our veterans because they are willing to risk everything to keep us safe. Taking the opportunity to fight must be a very difficult decision to make with having to leave your family and friends, knowing you may lose your life, and so much more. With those sacrifices made to serve our country, I am very thankful for our veterans for taking many extreme risks to keep people that they don't even know safe and protected. Personally, I know a few people who have been in a war, and I would like to thank them, along with every other veteran, for their service. I can't imagine what it would be like having to wake up every day knowing that there is a chance you may lose your life, and that proves how brave our veterans really are. I am so proud and grateful for our veterans. The fact that the majority of American citizens don't recognize our veterans as much as they should is disappointing to me. If it weren't for them, every single one of our lives would be drastically different, and I feel as though that everyone needs to realize this. Once again, I just want to say thank you to our veterans for giving us our freedom, making so many sacrifices to keep us safe, and for being a hero to everyone in the world.
And our 3rd place 8th grade winner, also from Claggett, is Raven Klein.
Veterans Day. What is Veterans Day? To some, it may seem like just another holiday, just another assembly or word search assigned by your history teacher. But Veterans Day is about more than that. Veterans Day is about liberty, about freedom, about those who fought so hard for it. Those veterans are family and friends. This day is for them. Men and women, weak and strong, young and old, Veterans Day is about them. While thousands, billions were enjoying their freedom, our veterans were defending it, a task that takes both courage and strength. Taking a stand for our nation is a noble feat, one worth high respect and honor. Our nation's veterans pulled through the terrors of war to protect our country and our rights. These brave men and women fought for us, so on this day we honor them.
That's why, on Veterans Day, we honor those that have fought for us, we remember those who have died fighting for us, and we respect those that are continuing to fight for us. Thank you, veterans.
I want to make sure that we recognize all of these students' social studies teachers who work with them on a daily basis. Mike Wayand, Jody Rubino, Terry Weaver, Adam McElwain, Chris Kokar, and Tricia Shuck. And I know some of you are here with us. If you could just raise your hand, you definitely deserve recognition.
And before we break, definitely thank the staff for participating in this, all those folks that Aaron mentioned. I also want to thank Colonel Taylor and the veterans from American Legion Post 202. There were 324 essays submitted, and they read every single one of them. And it took close to 4 hours, I believe. Yeah, it wasn't easy. And but they narrowed it down to the winners that you heard tonight. So thank you to the American Legion and the veterans of Post 202. And again, thanks to the staff. And then I also want a big thank you to Amy Busby for, we had this idea, and then Amy was the one who took the ball and made it come to life. So thank you, Amy, for everything tonight. And again, as Aaron said, I want to thank all the kids for participating, and of course our winners. So at this time, if all the winners will meet Colonel Taylor out in the hallway for a picture, and we're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll get back to the business of the meeting. Thank you.
Don't steal my crap.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to resume our meeting. And we're going to continue. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to resume the meeting tonight. And we're going to continue with our superintendent's communications. Mr. Sable.
At this time, I'd like to welcome Mr. Leatherman, principal of our Evolve Academy, up to the podium. And I know he's got a few students here, and they're going to talk about some of the great things going on at Evolve.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see such a big turnout. So the last few years, we've talked about our program and things that we changed. I think last year we also focused on our business mentoring program that we do. So tonight we wanted to change things up a little bit. We are going to start with a little bit of what we just did recently, which was World Kindness Day. That was last Wednesday, and we're going to cover a few things from there. And then we've got an example of a junior high learning project that we'll be hitting. That student was not able to make it. After that, we're going to be hearing from two of our current students who spend half the day at the Career Center. They've got things to share with you. And then I'll come back up with a little Thanksgiving Day reminder. So, all right. At this point, if you can go back one screen, back to the kindness. Okay. So you're going to hear from Mrs. Shabowski tonight. You're also going to hear from Miss Miller. And then I'll talk about the two students before they go. One thing we like to do at Evolve is if we have an idea that's good for kids, then we try and do it. So the first person you're going to hear from, she's been on staff for a long time, and Kim Miller came to me with the idea about the World Kindness Push, and of course it's got a lot of media hype this year, maybe more than usual, but it's been around since the 90s, and of course with the advent of the movie about Mr. Rogers that'll come out here close to Thanksgiving, I think it gave it some extra hype, but that really wasn't our main focus. So I'm going to let her share some of the things that we did for World Kindness Day.
Hello. So November 13th was World Kindness Day. Our occupational therapist, Jen Netzban, works with a couple of the kids in the junior high, and she told us about it, and we were talking about the Mr. Rogers movie, so I started looking up ideas, and I thought maybe we should do it for a whole month. So I sat with the junior high first. I asked ideas of what they thought they would like to do, and they generated a list of ranging from leaving positive notes within the school and the community, such as like the library or at Cool Beans, because we tend to go there often. Also cleaning up trash around the square and passing out some type of treats. So we also made a random kindness challenge board, and those go from writing positive affirmations to anybody in the school or somebody within your family, cheering someone up with a joke, use of good manners, tell someone why you are proud of them, and just writing a simple thank you note. So every day there's a different challenge going on in the building. You sign your name, and I also, along with several staff members, try to catch kids doing acts of kindness and call them out on and say, hey, that was very kind of you. Thank you for doing that. So we went around on November 13th, and we passed out the little cards, which was on another slide, but we did the water bottle. It just says, I hope this brightens your day, random act of kindness. Wednesday was not optimal walking weather just because it was a little snowy out, so we also did it Friday, and we had a large group go, And they got construction workers, different people at the gazebo, different people at Honeybee, but I think most of them were mostly proud of, they reached out to some servicemen. They saw them walking on the opposite side of the street going into PJ Marley's, and they're like, Miss Miller, can we please go get them? So we made sure we tracked them down, and they delivered them, and those gentlemen were very, very appreciative. And we had some people that just said they made their day. We also raised money as staff and bought gift cards to Cool Beans and had the kids pass those out as well. So it was really, really great last week. We're continuing it this week and next week, and I hope they learned something from it.
As the board's aware, we're doing a book study called Above the Line, and so the next thing you're going to see is something Mrs. Strabrowski did in class that ties in with that. It's transition planning, personality test for the kids to try. They really enjoyed it, so I'm going to welcome up Wendy Strabrowski.
Good evening. So as students are turning 14, their IEPs have a section for transition, getting ready for life after school, post-secondary, living on their own. So we, as junior high students and my ninth graders as well, did the Myers-Briggs personality trait indicators. So students took a pretty long quiz. You kind of rank and rate yourself, and then it gives you your personality type. So my one student that couldn't be here, Kirsten, if you want to do the next slide, Ryan, she found out that she is introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging. And then students, after they found out their personality type, they were required to tell me their Disney character, their superhero, so she was Pocahontas, and then they had to do at least 3 other slides that they would associate with their personality. So the student found a song. You don't need to play it. You can, in the essence of time. And then she's a counselor. That was the personality indicator for Myers-Briggs. And I would say that this really fits that student to a T. You can continue. And then these were some famous people. And she truly is like that. And then from there, we'll do the Ohio Means Jobs website, and they'll find occupations that might pair well with their personality and their interests. So it was pretty amazing to see how motivated they were, and all the students worked on their own slides. A few students said, oh, we're the same personality, so they worked together and joined up. They were really rewarded by finding out more about themselves and learning about who they are and could aspire to be.
Thank you, Mrs. Strabrowski. Ryan, there should be one more blue slide. It kept changing order on us. Is there an additional one? Okay. All right, well, that one will be fine. So next we're going to hear from Madison Cantor and Joey Giorgio. Madison is a junior at the Career Center and does a half day with Evolve. And Joey is a senior at the Career Center and does a half day. They do opposite shifts, if you will, because juniors have their trade skills in the morning and seniors have theirs in the afternoon. And I'm going to bring Maddie up.
Hi, my name is Madison. I'm a junior. Last year, I had the pleasure of speaking with you during the Evolve's 2018 presentation. Since last year, I was accepted into the Medina County Career Center's Business and Marketing Technology program. I attend the Career Center each morning for my job training. Some of the things we cover in class are entrepreneur case studies, IT skills, and the basics to running your own business, as well as business finance procedures. The Career Center is very accommodating and welcoming. They support my emotional needs by giving Evolve students an anytime pass where I can leave class if I need a moment. In the afternoon, I attend Evolve for my academics. The nice thing about taking my classes at Evolve is it offers me flexibility. Another great thing about being at Evolve half day is it gives me that comfortable feeling of family and emotional support. I've been attending Evolve since the spring of my 8th grade year. I have been contemplating about going to the Career Center full day next year, but it's a tough decision because I am so comfortable at Evolve and I enjoy it so much. But speaking about great things, at Evolve, my 2 biggest supporters are here with me tonight, Ms. Miller and Mr. Strabrowski. or the Shabrowler team they call themselves. Thank you for your time.
Gonna get the microphone ready for this guy. This is Joey Giorgio, Senior at the Career Center and Evolve Academy.
Hi, my name is Joey. I'm a senior. I started going to Evolve 3 years ago. I spend my mornings at Evolve and the afternoons at the Career Center for Software Engineering and Web Development. Last year at the Career Center, my website, I was part of a website design team that went to that won county level and got a chance to compete in the state level in Columbus for BPA, which is Business Professionals of America. We were able to stay overnight and spend 2 days away from school. It was a great experience, and we got to go to Dave & Buster's after the presentations. But unfortunately, my team didn't make it to Nationals. I'm down to my last class at Evolve and maintaining a 98% grade average at the Career Center. As a senior, I'm currently working on my capstone project, Windows applications, and I recently passed the Workies assessment, which is an alternative path to graduation. One of my favorite things about the Career Center class is the ability to collaborate and work with others, whether they have a software glitch or just want to learn something new. Over the past year, I've been building a .NET Windows application titled Desktop Reborn. This program is designed to make your workplace customizable. Some features within Desktop Reborn are software updates, account registration system, and in-depth background control. I started Desktop Reborn from scratch with 20 lines of code, and so far I've made 18,000 lines of code in the past 14 months. My goal last year I set was 20,000 lines of code, and I'm pretty confident I'm going to beat that. After graduation, I plan on attending college for software engineering and hopefully making a successful career. Thank you.
Mr. O'Call, I could see we had your attention in that last paragraph. Joey also got a chance to job shadow with Ryan's department last year, so they know each other pretty well, and you can see he's come a long way since then with his thoughts and where he's going to go after he graduates. He is getting down to his last class with us, so he will say farewell, and he will just work on his Career Center things like a lot of seniors have a shortened goal in the second semester. It's been a real pleasure, and we're so proud of both of them. So thank you for giving us a chance to present tonight.
I'd like to send out an extra thank you to our students, our staff, and Mr. Leatherman for coming here tonight and presenting, especially when we have such a large crowd. For these students to have the nerve to come up and present about the things that they're doing in school is not easy. I think I've said it before, when I was your age, I don't know that I would have been able to do that, so it's pretty impressive. And again, it was just 3 years ago that we were trying to make a decision whether to continue the Evolve program or not due to low enrollment. And we made the decision to give that program another chance under Mr. Leatherman's leadership. And it's a good thing that we did, that Evolve is impacting students and creating success. Thank you, guys. It means a lot that you came here today.
Mr. Leatherman.
If you don't have any questions for them, we're going to go out and do a little picture, but if not, anything for the students?
Mr. Leatherman, if I'd just like to say something. I just want to thank you and your staff for all the wonderful things that you do over at Evolve. 2 years ago when I first got on the board, I went to Evolve, and Maddie was one of the first students I ever met there, and I am just so proud of you, girl. You are blossoming and growing into this mature young woman, and it is just amazing to see. And I just want to say, keep going. You are going to go far. I know.
Thank you.
I don't know if I can follow her lead. That was pretty cool, but I also want to encourage you, what you two are doing. The staff, fantastic. You two are definitely part of a bright light in our district. You are winning the race in education, and I just want to encourage you to continue and look forward to seeing what lies ahead of you. But you guys, thank you very much for coming tonight.
And John, when you started, how many kids did you have, and then how many do you have today?
We started with 8. We grew to 20 that year, but then dropped back with some graduation. But now we're around 30. So,
30 kids.
and growing. We get
Well, you
a decent amount of referrals.
thank you for what you're doing to grow the program and giving these kids the opportunity that presents itself. Thank you.
All right.
And just so you know, 30 is at capacity for the program, and we actually had to add a teacher last year so we could serve more students.
That's true. We did add a new teacher, and we're using that to cover electives with online classes. And now we've also got reading for both elementary and middle, so it's been a real nice addition to have that 5th teacher in place. So.
Outstanding. Thank you.
And of all parents, teachers, feel free to step on out as we move on here with our agenda. Last item I have for this evening, you may have seen my YouTube video at the end of last week, but we did finally receive the OFCC report, the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, Council Commission, there we go, I got it right the first time. They came in and they reviewed all 12 of our buildings that house students. So that's all of our school buildings, including the Evolve Academy. They went through and what they did is an assessment of the facilities and came up with a 750-page report, which our OFCC committee is in the process of reviewing. This report provides us with a lot of detailed information in regards to the shape of our facilities and recommendations for improvements or even potential replacement of some of the facilities. It's important to note that the information in these reports at this point is suggestions. This is going to be an ongoing process where we're going to work within our committee as well as with the state, the OFCC. We'll eventually be reaching out to students, parents, and the community to get feedback in regards to our facilities. The facilities and the decisions we make with the facilities directly correlates to potential redistricting that we've been talking about for approximately a year now. You can imagine that if any adjustments are made with our facilities, that could directly impact redistricting. One thing that we do know right now for certain is that we need to do some redistricting within the next few years, and that's due to adjustments in the enrollment at our elementary buildings. And it's not necessarily due to a decrease in enrollment. Our long-term enrollment projection is actually staying pretty level. It's due to a shift in the population. We're seeing growth on the outer edges, north side, south side. I'm sure you all have seen the developments going up. And Medina is a great place. So we're seeing as our students are aging out that parents are continuing to stay and live and be a part of our Medina community, which means in some of our more established communities, the numbers have decreased. Our goal right now is to continue to review and evaluate that 750-page plan. We have a work session coming up on December 2nd, which is just 2 short weeks away. We are going to do a formal presentation for the board on that 750-page plan. So we can start having discussions about the future. I do want the community to know that we have established, we actually already had for redistricting a web page set up on our website. We've added to that and expanded to that to include facilities. We are going to make all documentation that we receive available for the public and for the public to review, and that can be accessed through that site. Thank you, and if there aren't any questions from board members, I think you're up, Mr. Chambers.
Being the old person that I am today, I forgot a piece of paper here that's very important. Dealing with the October financials, the district bank balance decreased $472,000 in October to $83 million. This is $2.17 million below last year at this time. General fund revenues were above last October by $906,000. Real property, public utility, personal property, property tax allocation, and other funding sources accounted for this increase. Current collection of ResAg, real property, public utility property, and Medicaid settlements make up the majority of this increase. General fund expenditures were above last October by $1.7 million. Personal services, benefits, purchase services, capital outlay, and other expenditures contributed to this increase in expenditures. It all relates to the strategic plan and to summer property improvements. I keep hitting that. The sales tax fund balance is up to $4.1 million. The district spent approximately $75,000 in October. The largest portion was on the drive repair at Waite, district paving, and tennis court repairs. The rec center capital fund balance is up to $105,000. This should please you very much. The district spent $55,000 in October and received from the city $215,000. The district also received $145 in donations. The district has received $113,000 in investment income for October. The total collected for the current fiscal year is approximately $24,000 above the total collected at this time last year. It's also approximately $136,000 above the total collected in all of fiscal year 16. The district has a general fund true days cash estimate to be 259 days. This is down from September by 9.27 days and below last year by 20.79 days. Questions? Thank you.
Any board communications this evening?
Excuse me?
Disregard.
I'm not done yet. I know this is what you all have been waiting for here, the 5-year forecast. I started out every year by saying that school districts are the only government agency in the state of Ohio required to create and submit a 5-year forecast. That was stated at OSBA when one of the legislators also pointed out, hey, school districts aren't the only ones. So I was happy. I was sitting back there happy because someone actually said what I said. The forecast is created based upon current information and a number of assumptions as it goes forward, and it is only good the day that it is created. Changes made by outside forces will always influence this forecast. There are 3 main sources of revenue, all of which affect the forecast throughout. These sources are real property taxes, unrestricted grants and aid, which are the school foundation monies, and property tax allocation funding. The real property tax revenue fund looks stable as a result of the passage of the substitute levy in May of 2018, with the collection beginning this calendar year. This levy will allow for continued funding of $6.6 million to the district. The passage of the levy allows the district to continue to move forward with the strategic plan approved by the board in June of 2017. The school foundation fund has been placed on hold by Governor DeWine. This biennium, the funding is based on the monies received last year and will be affected by new legislation coming out and student numbers that we have. Still not known at this time is how much the increase in the value of the Nexus pipeline will affect the per pupil value of the district on the foundation. Also, a new funding formula is being discussed in the State House. We have already been told if this new formula passes and is signed into law, it will not go in effect until after the current biennium is over. Property tax allocation funding is money coming from the state for homestead rollback reductions to the property taxpayers. The state has stopped distribution of the tangible personal property tax loss reimbursement monies to the district. To remind the board, at its height, the district was collecting nearly $7.5 million from tangible personal property taxes before the state discontinued these taxes. The district assumes increases in expenses as the forecast moves forward. We assume personnel will remain with the district as the retirement systems increase the years required for retirement. Cost of tuition and utilities are anticipated to increase. Supplies and material costs to the district are anticipated to remain steady but fluctuate throughout with the strategic plan. The plan provides for academic opportunities for students K through 12. These opportunity costs are reflected throughout the forecast. line 7.020, is showing that fund balances of the general fund and the substitute levy. It can be seen the current forecast shows the yearly reduction in the ending balances as programs and services of the strategic plan are implemented. With the passage of the substitute levy, the district stated that no additional funding will be requested from taxpayers until it is needed. This forecast shows the stabilization effect that the community provided the district with the substitute levy. It also shows the district estimates that it will not come back for an operating levy until the end of the current forecast. I would like to thank the community for their support of the school district with the passage of the substitute levy in May of 2018. With this support, the district will continue to collect $6.6 million per year, creating a more stable school district while remaining fiscally conservative. Questions on the forecast?
Mr. Chambers, no questions, but once again, I'd like to thank you for putting it into layman's terms. It is available up for the public to view. At the bottom of each page, where you go into detail, again, putting it into layman's terms so that the community members who don't have the depth of your knowledge understand more each individual section. And your commitment to the financial transparency of the district is commendable. I thank you.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
I would like to thank Mr. Chambers for all of that. Thank you very much. And I just want to also remind the board and the public that the board is approving the fact that this 5-year forecast is completed, because as Mr. Chambers said, it could change tomorrow. So we're just approving the fact that it was performed and shared with us.
Anybody else? Any board communications this evening?
Just a reminder, speaking of the 5-year forecast, the Finance Committee will meet on Wednesday, November 20th. At that time, I'm sure we'll be reviewing the 5-year forecast along with some additional information that the board, we recently attended the Ohio School Board Association convention down in Columbus. It was a lot of information jam-packed into 2.5 days. One of the sessions that I attended was titled Future Ready Schools Require Future Ready Boards. It was moderated by a woman who for several years was a board member. Many of the concerns and issues that my fellow school board members from different districts brought up were related to communication and transparency. It made me proud that many of their concerns and issues are things that we have already addressed here in Medina and that we've solved. The transparency using board docs and the encompassing methods the district has used to get information out to the community. Amy Busby, I thank you for that, because we want to make sure that everybody can know what is going on, whether it be emails directly to the parents, social media, either Twitter, Facebook, or the tried and true piece of paper. I could tell that many of those participants were a little envious because they had not gotten that far. I want to thank Aaron for leading the way, Mr. Sable, in that regard. The board truly appreciates your efforts in achieving such a high level of communication and transparency between the district and its stakeholders, which is our community. Thank you.
Just a couple things I wanted to bring up. Some time ago, there was discussion about all the accolades that we see on the walls, and that's a wonderful thing, whether it's the pictures or the video screens. But there was discussion about what could we do to increase the accolades of the academics, and in fact, for those who choose to go on into the service and serve the country that way. Just prior to the meeting, I was following that up with Principal Harrison, and he assured me that those things are still in pace, and I think from a community's perspective, that's something that they're looking for, and I'm excited to hear that that's happening. So I look forward to the day when we can come in and it'll be showcased in our main hallway, I hope. It's all coming together, but it's something that we happen to see in some other facilities, other schools, And so that is still moving forward. Also, tomorrow there's going to be an opportunity for the freshman girls basketball. Everybody who's from freshman to varsity is going to come to the Distance Learning Lab after school. And there's something called the Positive Coaching Alliance that we've gotten opportunities to engage with them through private sponsors, and they're coming in and speaking to our athletes and our coaches in the most practical, common sense ways of positive sportsmanship. That it's not all about winning and losing, but it's about what goes on in that experience that they have while they're here at Medina High School. We don't have to look very far back this week and what happens when things go south on a athletic field, not here in Medina. But the point being, I'm excited to see that we're making these positive advances so that real life impacts from positive, everything from the coaching down to the students. And then lastly, in the facilities committee meeting, we've been trying to find out a way to stretch the dollars, make them go farther. And one of the things that I'm pleased to share with you is that John Burkhart is going to pursue, some of the things that we would normally pay consultant or an engineer to oversee, some of the, like asphalt paving repair. We got so much paving that goes down, and to try to stay up with it every year, it's a challenge. But rather than necessarily paying out a percentage of that to have somebody watch somebody put asphalt down and clean it, he's going to take on a different approach here. We're going to see about trying to do that in-house. The specs, they're the same. I just appreciate the fact that in the process of doing that, there's a percentage that we would normally have handed to somebody else that we'll hopefully be able to use to get more work done for the money. So I tip my hat to John and his team for that, and I look forward to seeing what that looks like next year.
I'll try to be brief because I know we have a long meeting tonight, it looks like, but just want to, we're going to miss Doug's influence on the board, and again, we'll probably talk about that more in December, but you've been a great person to work with. But I want to congratulate Mr. Ross and Mr. Hilberg, who's in the audience tonight, on their election to the board for next year, and we're glad to have Mr. Ross continuing in that role. We were busy the first week of November with a couple committees. We had policy and we had the facilities with Mr. Eastwood. And enjoyed a lot of the playoff games this year with our sports teams. Got to go out to Sandusky and Brunswick to watch the boys, Sandusky for the girls. And both teams had just incredible seasons. Our football team did very well, and everybody's proud of them. And our band did well in Columbus, and our cross country, and I'm sure I'm missing a couple of our other sports that did really well. So we're proud of that, as well as our academic achievements. The board recently, one of the things we do every year is go down to Columbus for Ohio school boards. I'm not going to go over everything that we covered there, but just know that there's a lot of good classes. One of the classes was put on by our assistant superintendent, Dr. Kwalik, and it's about the C3PO program here at Medina, which works with students that teach them job skills to work with people that have special needs. And it was a very significant presentation, and we all, I think, got a lot out of that. So we're proud of Dr. Kwalik's work, Julie McCabe, who wasn't able to be there but has a lot to do with it, and Bill Turner, and the support of that program. So we had a good time down there, but it's a lot of learning sessions and a lot of information crammed into just a couple days. But we were down there working as a group. So thank you.
I would also like to thank the community for allowing the board and the administration to go down to the OSBA conference. It is always a very valuable time for us, and we're able to network with other school boards and share some knowledge and things. Two things I wanted to share with the board, events that I attended. One, the actor Laura Linney was one of the keynote speakers, And it was interesting because she shared a story how she had difficulty reading and writing until she was in high school. And that fortunately she had a teacher. She had an essay she had to do, and the teacher she was struggling with, and the teacher allowed her to use a project to help guide her before she actually wrote it. And she used shadow boxes sort of to set her outline, and she told her story that way. And then they were able to develop her outline and do her writing. And the way she talked about that and some other classes that she took, which involved a lot of movement, not a lot of sitting, but a lot of movement and action, reminded me of our inquiry-based learning that we're implementing as part of our strategic plan. And I know a lot of people hear about STEM and STEAM, and those are just two components of IBL, or the inquiry-based learning. And we're making strides with that as part of all these acronyms. Sometimes I get them a little confused, but it's inquiry-based learning. And we are making strides with that as part of our strategic plan. I think that's very important to point that out, that our administrative team is working on that. Thank you to Tina and Matt and your staff for helping implement that as part of our strategic plan. Another item with our strategic plan is I wanted to thank Mr. Harrison and his staff for having the academic awards ceremony a couple of weeks ago. There were a lot of kids there, and I know that was part of our plan to recognize academic achievement in our underclassmen, and I appreciate all the work that went behind that. It was very highly well received, and I do appreciate that, for you doing that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was at OSBA, I attended 2 seminars on Portrait of a Graduate. One was also 21st Century Learning, and the second was Portrait of a Graduate. One was put on by Hudson, and the other had a panel of superintendents from Lakewood, Westerville, Maysville, Granville, and Belpre City. They have all recently developed their Portrait of a Graduate. Some of you may recall a couple of weeks ago or work sessions ago, we started to talk about that process. And what was interesting from hearing these superintendents speak is that what was most important about this was the conversation that developed as a result of meeting with their community members, their parents, their students even. They had all their different stakeholder groups, and it was a conversation and communication that developed as to what do we want our graduates to look like? What do we hope for our graduates to achieve or do after they leave this place? And that is what they use to then develop what their portrait of a graduate looks like for their specific district. And then they use that to help drive what their next strategic plan was going to be, because they needed to have that, they called it a North Star, their guiding point, to then help them develop what are our goals and plans for getting our kids there. And I just thought that was really neat, and I know we're going to have some further conversations about that in the spring, and I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll be quick. I have a few communications, a few thank yous. First of all, the Rec Center Board is going to meet this Thursday, 7:30 a.m. at the Rec Center. I want to thank the Medina Schools Foundation. The foundation is a separate nonprofit that supports Medina City Schools, and they put on a fabulous fundraiser last Friday. I want to thank all the people that were involved in that to raise money to support our students. Much appreciated. As Rob mentioned, we had a lot of athletic teams this past fall do extremely well, cross country and soccer. But we can't forget about our band. Our band went down to the state competition and once again received the highest rating you can in the band, superior. And these kids and the I don't want to say coaches, but the band leader. The directors are just absolutely fabulous with our band program. So congratulations to the directors and to our band kids. Rob mentioned Dr. Kwalik and the C3PO program, which was an outstanding presentation. I also don't want to forget Wade Elementary presented their Wondrous Wednesdays. I almost said Marvelous Monday, but it was right, Wondrous Wednesday? Wondrous Wednesdays, a program that they initiated at Wade. So
We'll have to have Marvelous Mondays next.
And that was a great presentation, and I believe they won an award for that, for their presentation. So thank you to the Wade staff for that. And the Capitol Conference. So I did attend the Capitol Conference with my fellow board members and staff. And one of the classes I attended was facilities and student achievement. And I won't get into a lot about this, but it was just eye-opening because the Middletown School District renovated a middle school and built a new high school. And they're about a year and a half after the project, and they've seen an increase in their report card, drop in student discipline, and a drop in employee absenteeism, which was eye-opening. And so I asked myself, wow. And so as we move forward with our plans and our things like that, hopefully it's something that we can look forward to as well with that kind of positive those kind of positive things with new facilities. And lastly, I also want to congratulate Mr. Hilberg on being elected to the board this past election, and can't wait to start working with you. Thank you. Per our motion, we're going to move right to the public comment section of our meeting. We'll move that up. And before we do, I'm going to read the instructions on public comment so that everybody understands the guidelines. Community members wishing to address the board are asked to abide by the following guidelines. Attendees shall register their intention to participate in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting, and after those that have registered have spoken. If time allows, a 30-minute total time limit. If time allows, the board president will ask for public participation from all other attendees. When you come up to the podium, please state your name, your address, and your affiliation. Please keep your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. And all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer, and no person may address or question board members individually. Now, having said that, I look at the sign-in sheet and I see 8 people signed in. So that's roughly 24 minutes. So is there anybody else that wants to speak? All right, and you didn't sign in? All right, we'll get you. So anybody else, that's 9. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll just call your names just the way you did the roster. So Mr. Stout?
Hello, Ronnie Stout, 6175 Hooper Drive, Medina, Ohio, and past coach, family relative. It's a great turnout. I didn't think it was gonna be this many people, but I didn't know how to start this, but the first person I saw was Coach McMullen, and before Coach Kaplak was here, he was here for, I don't know, years and years and years, and now Coach Kaplak has been here for roughly 14 years, 15 years, and I think that says a lot about the Medina baseball program. Having 2 coaches in 30 years, they know what they're doing. I know there's going to be family to talk about, his personal relationship, but I train a lot of baseball players from age 4 to 18. They come in, and since I used to be a coach here, they go, oh my gosh, Medina's on our schedule. Medina, we play Medina. And it's the persona of Medina and what Coach Kaplak and all of the coaches have created here that I think is really special, and a lot of schools are searching for, and they can't find that person to do that. And I think that speaks volume of him. And on a personal level, I owe everything to him because after traveling the country playing baseball, I came back. He asked if I wanted to coach here. And at that time, I was still young, having fun and everything. And Lauren Brocklehurst played softball here. And he was like, Ronnie, what are you doing? You have the perfect girl that is really interested in you. Stop doing everything that you're doing. Focus on her. Look at your future. And now I'm married to her 2 years and just had 10-month twins. So I think it's more than baseball. I think it's personal. I think when he yells, he's the only coach that I've had that I was intimidated by him. But then he respected me, I respected him, and after, now we've become very, very close friends, and I can't say that many coach-player relationships are like that, and that's just my one little thing that I think that's just one little highlight of his career, and I think there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other players that have many stories for Caplac, and I'm sure you'll hear some tonight. So, all right, thank you.
Coach McMullen.
Hey, if I get to 15 seconds left, would you raise your hand? I don't think I'll take that long. Hey, my name's Mike McMullen. I graduated from Medina in 1967. I played baseball here, and I also played at Ashland College, and I was scholarship there. I'm in the Northeastern Ohio Baseball Coaches Hall of Fame. I'm in the Greater Akron Baseball Coaches Hall of Fame. Been here 30 years at Medina, 16 years as a head coach. Full disclosure, Nick Caplac is my friend. Okay, just want to let you know. I hired him in 1997. I think it was his first year teaching here. He was my assistant coach. And when I stepped down in 2005, I recommended him strongly as a head coach, and he's been the head coach since then. There's only been 4 coaches here in the 4 head coaches at Medina in the last 55 years. One of them was there for 3 years. Okay, and everybody who was in the program stepped down. Coach Wyant, myself, Coach, stepped down on their own. I just want to let you know that. It took us 80 years to win our first, get to our first regional in Medina, and after that, Nick Caplac did it 4 times in 14 years. Okay, it's amazing what he's done. He has elevated the program to a very high level. He just, there's been, just real quick, but there's like 200 teams in the Division I, and 15 teams have made it 5 times or more in the last 15 years. Medina being one of them. 2 of them are also in our conference, and the another 3 are St. Ignatius, St. Ed's, and Massillon Jackson. And Coach plays all those teams all the time. He always goes forward and finds the very best competition for the kids. He has the toughest schedule in the state of Ohio many years. It's rated number 1, 2, 3. He also goes to Florida every year, and we play top-rated teams. Last year we played a top-rated team from Missouri and another one from Ohio. They were from the Dayton area. So I just want to let you know he always plays the toughest schedule he can possibly find. Over the last 14 years, he has raised close to $100,000 on his own so that he could pay for more coaches. We're allowed 4 coaches, so usually it's 2 varsity, 1 JV, and 1 freshman. But he knew that with more coaches, we could get more done. The kids could get a better, training and so on like that. So he raised that money, and so to pay for the coaches, and also allowed teams to keep more players. So I would say at least another 50 to 60 players who would have not been able to be kept over the years were kept because he took the time to raise the money. And I think, of course, having the extra coaches is definitely a plus. As far as just some of the things in the program, he runs a 3-month weight training and program in November, December, and January. He runs an 8-week throwing program early in the morning. Yes, we're down to 15 seconds already? Holy cow, that went fast. Okay, I have a lot to say, but anyway, I'm just getting the idea of how much he does. It could go on or not. I could sit here for an hour, but I won't. Okay, this is the end of it. And I just want to tell you, he's driven by fairness and equal opportunity. That's what drives Nick Caplac. That's what's make him Nick. When things are not fair, Nick Caplac stands up. And he not only stands up, he pushes. Okay? And sometimes he pushes too hard. I agree. But he's always doing the right thing. I am proud that he is the coach of Medina, and I am proud to be his friend. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hartman? Mr. Dave Hartman?
Hello, my name is Dave Hartman. I live at 6016 Hutt Circle in Medina. I am a friend of Coach Caplac. I've coached youth sports with him for the past 4 years. I am here to share with you some disturbing news on what has happened to the Cooperstown bids and how it relates back to the varsity baseball coach. When we returned from our Cooperstown trip the 3rd week of June of 2019, we had in our hands another bid that gets turned over to the next team in Medina so they can attend the following summer. Our plan was to turn over that bid at the next MYBA board meeting, which was sometime in July. We wanted to tell the board about our experience at Cooperstown and make some suggestions on how to make things a little bit smoother for future generations of kids in Medina attending this baseball tournament. On June 24th, the travel program director for Sting, Chad Frazier, requested to meet with Coach Kaplak and demanded that he turn the bid over immediately. When Nick refused, MYBA President Bob Jacobs called Coach Kaplak, left a rather vulgar message, and suspended Nick indefinitely from coaching in MYBA. Suspended not because of his ability to coach, nor for his relationships with his players, coaches, and parents, but suspended for not handing that bid over that day. The board meeting, unfortunately, in July was canceled, and Coach Kaplak handed over the bid to an MYBA board member. On August 18th, the MYBA president, Bob Jacobs, announces through an email to the parents in Medina that they are holding tryouts starting August 28th for an all-star team for an opportunity to go to Cooperstown in the summer of 2020. On August 27th, MYBA president sends out a second email informing everyone that the Cooperstown tryouts are canceled with no explanation. After the cancellation of the tryout, I attempted to contact the MYBA board members on 17 different occasions to find out what has happened to the Cooperstown tryout and what is happening with the current bid. With no response from MYBA, I called the Cooperstown office to find out that the bid had been registered to another team from Olmsted Falls, not to a team in the city of Medina, and that bid was received to the Cooperstown office in January of 2019, some 7 months before MYBA announced their all-star team tryout. Yes, the tryout was a fake. There was no intention of sending any all-star team from Medina because the bid was already given away to another city. People in this community were lied to, and Coach Kaplak's reputation is being ruined because of the corrupt action done 7 months before these tryouts were even announced, and 7 months before he even had that bid in his hands. Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Johnson? Mr. Jeff Johnson?
My name's Jeff Johnson, 2925 Blakeswood Boulevard, Medina. I'm the father of 2 sons that play baseball. One's currently on the varsity team, the other one hopes to be someday. I'm here basically to support Nick Kaplak because I believe that I'm one of the silent majority. It seems the people that complain the most are the loudest and the fewest. I think the turnout in this room tonight in support of Nick speaks volumes for everyone and how they feel about Nick and the job that he does as both a coach and a mentor. We have personally found Nick to be a great influence and positive role model for our son, as well as the young men that he coaches. He's shown to be an individual that cares about all the players, not just some. Nick's not without fault, and he'd be the first one to tell you that, but having watched him for 2 years now, I can tell you no one that's ever went to a Medina baseball game has left the field embarrassed to be from Medina. I've not seen Nick do one thing, let alone even raise his voice. I've lived in the Medina community for roughly 25 of my 30 years in the Cleveland area, and I must admit, regarding stories and expectations I was told would occur when my kids got to high school, not a single one of them has transpired. I'm currently an executive for a Fortune 500 company. I've been 30 plus years in corporate America. I've seen a lot of people. I've dealt with a lot of people. I'll tell you this, I've never seen one person's reputation attempt to be tarnished by certain folks in this community that has so far been proven to be completely unjust and unfair. Whatever situation Nick's in, I'd hope to be handled internally and let him maintain his current position as the varsity baseball coach of Medina. I came here tonight to support him and hopefully get other people aware that Nick is a great person, a great coach, and I think every kid that has played for him and currently plays for him would say the same thing if they were given the opportunity. In closing, please take into consideration the turnout tonight, specifically in support of Nick when deciding what, if any, action is to be taken against him in his current varsity baseball coaching position. Thank you.
I'm not sure I got the last name correct. Mr. Rob Canley?
Close enough. Chancellor.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Rob. There we go. My name is Rob Canceley. I live at 621 Senior Drive in Medina, and I'm here to speak for Coach Kaplak. I do so as a parent of a current varsity player, my son Andrew, who is a senior. My son has been lucky to have excellent coaching, I think, throughout his first 3 years at Medina, at the freshman, JV, and varsity levels. To echo what Mr. Johnson just said, I also have heard negative stories told about Coach Kaplak before my son got into the high school level, so had a little bit of trepidation as to how this would actually play out with Coach Kaplak. I've been very pleased, as Mr. Johnson was, not to have seen those taking place. My son's experience last year on varsity, his first, was very positive. He will tell you that he wrote for the college credit class he's taking now on an event that changed his life was being in the varsity program last year and being on the varsity team and working the hardest he ever has at baseball, and how that gave him confidence in the success he had to want to continue to do that in that area of his life and in others. Everyone's here, and it's a long night, so I just want to wrap up and say the biggest compliment that I can give to Coach Kaplak, and the biggest reason that I would want him to stay as coach is that I trust him with my son. I trust him with my son in terms of his development not only as a player, but also as a person. I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Mr. O'Brien? Mr. O'Brien here?
Pat O'Brien, 5056 Wedgwood Road, Medina. I'm a former employee here, retired in 2014. I had the pleasure of coaching with Nick. I coached here in Medina in some capacity since 1982. I was very heartened to hear Ms. Pavlik talk about communication and transparency. From what I can gather, none of that has been used when it comes to Nick Kaplak. There's been no communication with Nick about the dreadful, horrible emails, letters, etc., whether they were true, whether they were, and he was never given a chance to even speak to those issues. You want to talk about moving on as a board with communication and transparency? Start, please, with your own staff and with your coaches. Nick Kaplak is a great coach. I coached with him in football for 4 years. I coached alongside him as I was lacrosse coach, and the same season for 15 years. I would measure him as great a coach as I've had the opportunity to work with, and I have worked with some great ones. I also find it interesting that we're talking about the Positive Coaching Alliance, which is a great program. The thing that's missing in your program, Mr. Eastwood, is the parents. We do not have control of what parents say about us as coaches. We accept it only because we want to pass levies. Because it's true? No. Because what they say really is the measure of a man? Absolutely not. But because if we don't, they'll raise a stink. They'll come after us. They'll say stuff about us at these board meetings. In 2001, I had the same kind of issue with a youth program, my youth program. I didn't run it. It was run by someone else. This man wanted me gone. The principal and the AD at the time, when I said, okay, then I'll be gone, looked at me and said, if you're gone, lacrosse is gone. That is how this should work. Nick Kaplak is a good man, a good coach, and the clatter out there from those people needs to be put down, and we need to keep him and keep him doing what he does. Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Farrell. Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Hello, John Farrell, 565 Huntley, Medina, Ohio. Affiliation is our son played for Coach Kaplak over the summer, and I'd like to share our experience with Coach Kaplak. Our son learned a tremendous amount about baseball. Still not sure he knows where his hands go. Not sure he knows the exact proper fielding position. Quite sure he's not going to be the next Ronnie. I'm definite of that at this point. But what John did learn this year, and what we're very grateful to Coach Kaplak for, is when there was a question in the field, when there was a moment that maybe we could dwell on, it was a good call, a bad call, a missed call, whatever it was, the methodology that Coach Kaplak would go at it was the same every time. Politely call timeout, request it. Once it's granted, walk out, speak privately with the umpire, listen to what the umpire had to say, and then come back to the dugout and move on. That was phenomenal. And to take a group of 12-year-old kids and try to get them focused on anything, let alone refocused after something happened, too many baseball games, too many football games, too many situations in life missed because we dwell on what happened, an incident. Being able to refocus and move on, what's important, that's one of the things that Coach Kaplak instilled in our kids. The second thing that Coach Kaplak instilled in our kids that my wife and I are so privileged to have him help us with, this is Coach Kaplak's living. He provides for his family for being an educator and being a coach, and he's compensated for it. But yet on his off days, the days that he doesn't have to go do that, he wakes up and does it anyway for free. It's a philanthropic outlook on life. He's not writing a check, he's giving the most valuable resource, his time. Our son was blessed, and what we hope he learned is when you have a skill someday, whether you're a subject expert or just have a skill, we hope that you give back like Coach Kaplak has by volunteering. We believe that's something that this board should be very, very, very proud of. It's something this board should nourish, and we hope it continues with Coach Kaplak. Thank you.
Mr. Birch, Bishop Birch, if I did that correctly.
My name is Bishop Birch. My address is 922 Red Oak Circle in Medina.
Yeah, you have to speak up a little bit because we're recording the minutes.
My name is Bishop Birch, and I live in 922 Red Oak Circle in Medina. Coach Kaplak is like a father to me. He helps me when I struggle in baseball, like he helped me with my swinging and how to keep my head up straight. Also, he helped me keep my eyes on the ball. He also makes me confident. When I struck out in baseball, he said, keep your head up and say to yourself, I got this. And that's why I think Coach Kaplak is like a father to me.
And I know there's one other gentleman.
I would like to say something if there's time.
Come on up.
Sorry that I didn't fill out the paper beforehand.
My name is Alyssa MacDonald, 4402 Lexington Ridge Drive. I am a parent of students here in Medina City Schools. I'm a friend of Nick Kaplak's, and I also am I guess you would call it, former coach's wife. My first husband, Dan Sherman, was a teacher here at Medina City Schools for many years. He coached with Nick Kaplak on the football field and also on the baseball field. When he died suddenly in 2014, it was a tragedy here in Medina for my family, for Caleb and Lauren, who were at the time only 6 and 5 years old. And the Kaplak family did more than I can ever even pay them thank you for their love, their support, their generosity. Nick worked so hard to get the baseball field renamed as the Dan Sherman Memorial Field, and it's beautiful, and people that come to Medina and come to the field get to see that. My son is a 6th grader right now at Root Middle School, and it would be such an honor if someday he would get to play for Nick Kaplak, because Nick has a heart of green and gold. Thank you.
You just state your name and address for the minutes.
You got it. My name is Aaron Haycook. I live at 1312 Goldcrest in Medina. My wife and I moved up into Medina area in 2001, 2002 before family. We've been here ever since. We now have three kids in the Medina City Schools. One's a freshman, one's a junior high, and one's in 3rd grade. But I came from a different place. I come from a place further south, a smaller community, and I often had wondered about this larger community and how people can get swallowed up when there's so many in such a big organization, which, by the way, fantastic job. I really do love the community. I love what you guys do. I thank everybody here for everything that they do and all their contributions. I see a lot of people that are very passionate about this, and that's why they're here. I've got the opportunity. I'm a volunteer coach. I coached t-ball, flag football, tackle football, rec baseball, and travel baseball. I was a den leader for the Cub Scouts, so I've been fortunate enough to be able to provide my time to your children in the community. It's me that spends time with your kids, or people in the community, their kids, sharing with them and teaching them. I had the opportunity to work with Nick Kaplak in football, but before we crossed paths in football, I met him much earlier, and it was through baseball. As a rec coach for the Medina City baseball program, we had to go to a coaches meeting for 7-year-olds, and Nick came to the meeting and introduced himself and then passed out a questionnaire. He explained that although he was a baseball coach for the high school, for varsity, if he was taught or asked to be a 7th grade or 7-year-old baseball coach, he'd be a first-year coach. He wouldn't know what to do. So he asked us to write down on a questionnaire what kids are working on at that age, because he knew we were the closest to those kids, and we knew. And then he said, if your kids at 7 are working on sliding, I'll send high school players to your practice to work with the kids to learn how to slide, which, that's a sense of community to me. That gives the kids an opportunity to look up to kids that they think are their heroes, and the kids in high school get an opportunity to reach back down to the community and give back, which I think is a valuable lesson in itself. Past that, I've attended Coach Kaplak's coaches clinics that he's held at the high school, which included all the coaches in the rec program, high school programs. He took time to answer any questions, and he went through everything, batting, pitching. He wanted to make sure that the people who were volunteering their time were doing it correctly. They weren't putting the kids in jeopardy or in danger. He wanted to make sure they were getting the correct fundamentals. Through football, I've got to coach with him for 3 years. I can honestly say that he does build character for the kids. He's a great mentor. He's selfless with his giving back to the community, as mentioned before. He's passionate about it. He has a lot of trust for kids. He teaches them trust, responsibility, empathy, and accountability. It's really important that someone like that stays a part of this community as he helps young men and women transition to later on in life, from being adolescents and juveniles to adults. So I think it would be a tremendous disservice if we would let someone of that tenure and talent go from our programs. Thank you.
Nick, Aaron, can I have your last name again, Aaron?
Haycook, Haycook.
Thank you.
Can I have last time, Todd, please?
Are you asking to speak?
Yes, please.
Okay, come on up.
Hello, I'm Jeff Peterson. I currently reside at 2873 Emma Lane in Brunswick. I am from Medina, raised my boys here. My son played for Coach Kaplack. I got to witness him for the 4 years that my son played. Great experience. It aggravates me to hear all the negative stuff that came about for Coach Kaplack. It's very easy nowadays to get on your phone, get on your computer, type whatever you want. There's no recourse. Here's your recourse. These are a room full of people that love Coach Kaplack, that took time off work. I'm working right now. Took time off, 8 hours pay, to be here today to look at this. Look, does it get any better than this? It doesn't. I personally coached youth until my son reached the high school. I actually do National Youth Leadership Training with the Boy Scouts of America. I'm an Eagle Scout. My oldest son is an Eagle Scout. The biggest thing of leadership is setting the example. Everything that I saw from Coach Kaplack for 4 full years was setting an example of how to be a premium baseball player. Whether you were succeeding at the time, whether you were failing at the time. In my 4 years, I saw my son struggle because he said he was a switch hitter when he came in. Coach McMullen and Coach Kaplack said, "You're a switch hitter. You're going to be a switch hitter as a freshman." He struggled that year. Still did okay, but struggled because it's all right-handed pitching, so he batted lefty, which he had never done before. So they set an example, said, hey, if you want to do this, you have to commit, and he did. The next season, he said, I'm a right-handed hitter. So he went on to have a fairly successful career. People in the audience, the Havicost brothers, both very successful in our program. Over here, Ronnie, Van Duke, Mitch, all very successful people, all enjoyable people to be around. And that comes from Coach Kaplack. And I want to thank him for all he's done, and I greatly wish that you guys will keep him on as coach, because he's done an awesome job. Thank you very much.
I want to thank you all for your comments. They will be considered. And I want to thank you all for appreciate your time and following the guidelines that we set forth for tonight. So thank you for that. And before I conclude the public comment section, is there anybody that wants to speak to the school board on anything other than Coach Kaplack? Any other public comments? All right, seeing none, we're going to take a short break so that folks want to leave, they can leave, and then we'll resume our meeting. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We are going to resume our meeting with the treasurer action items.
I'm sorry, Ms. Chambers, can I say something real quick? I just wanted to mention, with all the discussion about baseball, that we are in the middle of a personnel matter with Mr. Cap Black, and at this time we can't comment or get into detail in regards to that situation. Thank you.
If it please the board, we have action item number 1, Treasurer's Report. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the October 2019 Treasurer's Report. Item number 2, amended resolution accepting the amounts and rates. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the amended resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor for the tax year 2019, collection year 2020. These rates were given to us here, I believe it was Thursday of this, it was after we met for our agenda meeting, but they needed them back, turned around. The reason that they're late is the county auditor did not receive the effective rates until late because of the reappraisal that occurred. We have item number 3, resolution request of refund of carryover funds. It is recommended that the Board of Education elects to receive the automatic refund amount for fiscal year 2018-19 and maintain a carryover balance with the Educational Service Center of Medina County. If you recall, something occurred a few years back that made all ESCs have to give back money. We request the minimum amount of $25,000. The state has increased that up to $50,000, but I deem it best that we stick to the minimum itself. We have item number 4, approval of the 5-year forecast. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the 2019 5-year forecast and notes that comply with the State of Ohio Department of Education requirement. Item number 5, commercial credit card program. It is recommended that the Board of Education approves establishing a commercial credit card program with Capital One National Association Bank. I wrote to the board on this. We currently use U.S. Bank, and we were to receive refunds with our purchases. That has not occurred, so we're switching over to Capital One, in which any purchase we make will receive 1.5% back. Item number 6, contract with Asset Control Solutions Incorporated. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the contract with Asset Control Solutions Incorporated to inventory, evaluate, and report on the buildings, movable assets, and site improvements of Medina City Schools. It's been 10 years since the schools have had an inventory of all of its assets. This group will give us a spreadsheet that we could upload into our current asset system, and that is one of the reasons that we chose this group itself. Item number 7, supplemental to the 1920 permanent appropriations. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the following supplementals to the 1920 permanent appropriations. There's one item here that I wanted you to take a look at. It's your Medina County JDC. This was missed in our permanent appropriations, so I'm presenting it to you now. The JDC, the monies that come out of here are all salaries and benefits, so nothing has been affected for our people that work for us in the JDC. Item number 8 is fund-to-fund transfers. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the following fund-to-fund transfers for general fund to energy transportation. We had our energy transportation bonds come principal and interest due here the beginning of October, and we paid out the $327. So these are funded by the general fund. You have the JDC moving monies to Evolve. I know John Leatherman will be very happy with this one. Monies were placed in the JDC inadvertently. You could tell by the numbers here, 149016 as opposed to 149116. So we corrected those, and those were placed in last year. So we're making the correction through the transfer as opposed to doing a purchase order and receiving monies in, so the board is aware of this. And then finally, I had to ask Chris about this one, and again, John's going to be happy. Woohoo! We have CFIT, fiscal year 2011, and John, CFIT was Evolve as far as Chris told me. So you're getting another $5,500. So congratulations. We have a then and now purchase order, Scholastic Book Fairs. This came in, they created the purchase order after the book fair occurred. Being that it's over $3,000, I have no authorization, and I'm looking for authorization from the board to approve the then and now purchase order. Any questions?
I will make a motion to approve the treasurer's action items.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any board discussion? Thank you.
Mr. Chambers, I just have one quick question. With the credit card, does the district pay off the credit card debt in full every month, or do we incur interest charges?
No, it's a revolving card here in which we have total control over the card. We have purchase orders made out for the credit card itself. The individual is only allowed to purchase up to the purchase order amount, and then they have to return the receipts. And once the amount from the receipts hits the card, hits their system, we drop the card back down to $1. So we have to have it at $1 to keep it active. Otherwise, we're paying a startup fee with it.
Thank you for clarifying.
Mr. Chambers, regarding the contract for the asset control solutions, I just wanted to clarify that the district does have a fixed asset system in place. New items are added, disposals are made. This is just an inventory to clarify and maybe reconcile those assets.
This is to reconcile for insurance purposes. What we have is a system that takes the asset that comes into the district, and we basically determine the depreciation on it. And as the depreciation goes through its life cycle, that's what we have in our system right now. But we may have something that's older than the depreciation value that we may need replaced, and therefore this will pick it up. So.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anyone from the community that wishes to address the board on the treasurer's action items? Seeing none, Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Sable.
First item tonight is donations. There is one donation in particular I would like to bring attention to. That's a donation of almost $3,000 to Garfield Elementary School from the Willard Stevenson Foundation. And they funded scholarships for our Garfield students to go to the Camp Christopher field trip. Number 2 is policies. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following new, revised, and reissued policies in revised forms for first reading. The policies and forms will not be presented to the board for final approval and potential adoption until the regular December Board of Education meeting. I do want to note there's quite a few policies here. These have had a first reading through the policy committee. There are no new policies here. These are all updates and adjustment. These will be put into public view following the board's vote this evening. Number 3 is field trips. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following overnight field trips in compliance with Policy 2340 for the 1920 school year. We have 2 overnight basketball trips. I do want to note that the one trip occurred at the beginning of November and was approved by me and now is being presented for board approval. Was not previously presented because of the short timeline to allow the students the opportunity to take that trip. We also have an encore entertainment company show on the agenda as well, which these students have done in the past. Number 4, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the Medina City School District's plan for the identification and service of children who are gifted. You might remember last year I presented a very similar item to the board. This became a requirement last school year that school districts have gifted service plans approved by the Board of Education. I think this is part of their accountability system, and I don't mean to sound negative, but the state provides little to no funding for gifted services, as well as mandates are actually pretty limited for gifted. I think we're fortunate here in Medina City Schools to offer fairly extensive gifted programming, and that's programming that we've actually expanded over the last 3 years as part of our strategic plan with the addition of teachers, as well as the expansion of the program up to the high school level. So this service plan is very similar to the one that you saw last year to ensure that gifted students are being served. Number 5, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve to amend the service agreement between the Medina City School District and Educational Service Center in Medina County to provide 2 one-to-one educational aides for 2 Medina City School District students attending Woodfall School for the 1920 school year. I do want to note with this item, and I know I've said this before, but we've changed how we work with the Medina ESC and their contract. We do have the option when the board approves a contract with the ESC to allow flexibility for us to add these positions as needed as we head through the school year. We have made a decision that we would come to the board anytime there needed to be a change or adjustment to the ESC contract. That is why this is being presented tonight. Number 6, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreement for the 1920 school year. This is Burke-Meyer Consulting Group. As the board knows, we have spent the last 2 to 3 years looking at the potential re-entry of teaming at our 2 middle schools. I do want to thank Paul and Brian for their work, as well as Matt and Tina in working with our teachers. Our middle school teachers have really shown a passion for the implementation of teaming at the middle school level. It is something that was reduced back when the budget constraints were in place. One of the things that I charged the committee with is that if we are seriously going to look at teaming, we are going to put a quality effort into looking at other schools and their programs and make sure we're putting a teaming program in that fits our students in Medina City Schools and just is not the re-implementation of an old program that existed 10 years ago. That committee has worked very hard the last couple years, including a book study, as well as visiting multiple districts in Northeast Ohio. And this is another step in moving in that direction where lead teachers will be trained on the teaming model, and then it will be a train-the-trainer model. Currently, we are on goal to implement teaming for the upcoming school year. I think I mentioned last year that this is already worked into our 5-year forecast, despite it being outside of the strategic plan. And even though it's not directly in the strategic plan, there are many components that you could relate to various parts of the academic piece of the strategic plan. Number 7, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreement for the 18-19 school year. These are all for special education services per student's IEPs. I did want to mention with the ESC of Cuyahoga County, we have regularly contracted with the ESC, and this is an increase to that contract of $35,950. It's not an additional $400,000. That's what the total contract is. And last, we have personnel. It is recommended to the Board of Education to approve the following personnel recommendations pending completion of all documentation with our Human Resources Department. And I have to say, this is the shortest list of personnel we have seen for some time. I think our volunteers have leveled out a little bit. Any questions for me from the board?
I make a motion to approve these action items.
I'll second.
Any board discussion?
Yeah, I do, actually. Mr. Sable, regarding the crowdfunding, when you use the term crowdfunding, does that include the PTO fundraisers that have been progressively moving to an online format? I do know I have, there's pros and cons to the online pursuit of fundraising. I know that we lose the opportunity, the students lose the opportunity to interact with the community when the fundraising is done completely online. And what we're gaining by this convenience, we're losing in that social interaction, which we hear our local businesses talk and complain about students not having soft skills, knowing how to communicate. So can you give a little bit more information on that, please?
The crowdfunding policy relates specifically to school organizations, classes, teachers. It does not apply to, and I know maybe it's not easy to understand because they work directly with the schools, but PTOs, booster organizations, music organizations, they're actually their own separate entity that supports the school districts. So the crowdfunding is for school activities. When we're talking about crowdfunding, generally what it's referring to is when a fundraiser is put out online to collect money for a cause. And we want to make sure with the crowdfunding policy that we have an opportunity as a district within the district to provide the funds through our taxpayers. That's why they support our schools before we go outside and ask for support for those classes. And I think we're very fortunate here. We just had the foundation event this past weekend to have support even outside of our taxpayers with the organizations that support us. But to answer your question, it applies to everything in the school, not outside organizations.
And I also have one more question regarding the policy 7540.02. It's up for first reading. Is there plans to review policies .03 and .04 in regards to social media usage for students and teachers? Also including what is the acceptable method for teachers and coaches to communicate with students? I know that Snapchat is at no time acceptable for a teacher or coach to use to communicate to an individual student. Does Instagram or Facebook fall under that as well?
The policy on social media is something that we're constantly reviewing, and it's a necessity because of the changing environment with the online social media. We do regularly discuss and hold staff accountable to how social media is utilized. I do have to say that our community does expect us to use social media. It's many of our parents' main means of communication. And to be honest with you, one of the best ways for me to get information out to the community is through social media. But it is a policy that's constantly under review, and it's something that's going to be regularly changing as there's new modes of social media available or modes of social media become less popular.
Mr. Sable, if I may, Mrs. Pavlik, as Rob and I sit on the policy committee as well, and those policies that you mentioned are going to be coming up for review. There's been a committee assembled of teachers, coaches, parents, students. They're going to go through those, and then once they go evaluate all those and figure out what we want to do as a district, those will come to the policy committee, and we will be reevaluating those, but it probably won't be until early 2020, January, before we'll see those at the earliest, probably after that. But just so you know, thank you. You're welcome.
And if I could comment on number 6 on service agreements, I mean, I'm in favor of the Berkmeyer Consulting contract for the trainers, but I guess I still reserve the right to have discussion and comment about the teaming concept as far as the cost that it might incur and so forth as part of our, I mean, again, I think we still are going to have some more discussions about that later, at least is my understanding.
That is correct. We actually, at an upcoming board meeting, probably our next work session, we're actually going to have a presentation on teaming and where teaming is at. And our intent was to actually do that this past month, but it wasn't possible due to circumstances.
Any additional comments from the board? Any community member wishing to address the board on the superintendent's action items? Seeing none, Mr. Chambers?
Ms. Pavlik. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think
Ms.
I made
Parkhurst.
the
Ms.
motion.
Parkhurst. I saw second.
Like, I knew
you
I
know, it's
wasn't.
been a long night. I'm sorry.
I agree.
Ms.
Aye.
Parkhurst.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Sable?
Set
And
it
our
twice, too.
last action item of the evening is the amended joint operating agreement. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the amended joint operating agreement between the Board of Education of the Medina City School District and the City of Medina pertaining to the Medina Recreation Center effective January 1st, 2020. I think we've talked about this quite a bit over the course of the past year to 2 years, but just to remind people, if you haven't heard about this, we have been collaborating in a committee with the city, which has included council member, board member, the mayor, myself, as well as administrators, both in the district and over at the rec center. And this document is approximately 20 years old and has not been revisited since it went into place. So we thought it was important to take another look at this document. We are recommending, the committee's recommending revisions that reflect the actual usage of the recreation center. Also includes an even 50-50 split, which we were paying the higher rate on that. I know at this point, the document, I believe, was approved at the committee level by the city and will be going to the council within the next month. The intent is to have the new JOA in place for the new year, January 1st. In addition, I think it's important to mention that we added language into the new JOA that it would be reevaluated every 3 years. So we want to make sure it doesn't go a long period without it being reevaluated as times change. We need to make sure the document is up to date. In addition, at the end of the document, there is an appendix which we have adjusted. The one appendix was removed because it was no longer relevant. The other appendix is that the lease agreement was not included within this document, and we wanted to make sure that the lease agreement, it made sense, was included as a portion of the JOA.
I'll make a motion to approve action item H, amended joint operating agreement.
I would second that.
Any board discussion?
I just want to thank all of the players that were involved in that JOA review, Dr. Kolek, Rob, our city council, yourself, Aaron, because I know it was quite extensive. And I think it's a great idea to have it reviewed much more frequently. And I think the changes will benefit both parties. And I'm glad to see that, coming up, that we will take a look at that advertising that's going on over there too. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I want to thank the committee, Rob, everybody, for all their hard work on that. Anybody else? Any member of the community wishing to address the board on the action item amended joint operating agreement? Seeing none, Mr. Chambers.
Get this one right. Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Thank you.
This time I want to make a motion to adjourn to go into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, to consider the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual.
I'll second that.
Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore?
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik?
Aye.
Thank you.
And we will not take action, and we're going to invite Mr. Hilbert.
Yep. In executive session, we'll need Mr. Shields, Dr. Kwolek, and Brian, would like you to join us as well if you can. Thank you. Yeah, we'll be meeting right here in this room.